Good evening. Welcome to the River Forest Police Department 4th Quarterly Community Safety Meeting. I'm Officer Ben Ransom, the Crime Prevention Officer here at the River Forest Police Department. Thank you everyone who's attending in person and everyone who is joining us online. And before we get started, I'd like to say the Pledge of Allegiance. If you'll all please rise. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, the Republic for which it stands. Tonight's agenda, we have guest presenters from Sheridan at the River Forest, some safety tips, and we're going to catch you up on local news and notes since our last summer meeting. To kick us off, I'd like to welcome Chief Jim O'Shea. Words, Chief.
Good evening, and welcome to those that are watching us live this evening, and also to those that will be watching the recorded version of tonight's community safety meeting. For those that missed the last one, it's online for viewing, and it was a very, I'd have to say, informative and animated meeting with some amazing guest speakers. Just like last meeting, tonight we have our partners from the Sheridan that will be giving us an overview of their services, how things are going at the new building over at Chicago Avenue in Harlem. Just a couple thoughts from me right now is the number one issue that we seem to continue to get calls on are traffic related. Those are from residents and the business community and those that travel through the town that have concerns about speeders, those that don't follow stoplights, stop signs, show the right of way to pedestrians or bicyclists, or in just some ways just are lacking in common courtesy and dignity to others. So I just remind everyone, especially since pretty soon with the time change, it's going to be dark a lot earlier out there. The leaves are going to be on the ground. It's going to be slippery, and that's going to move into winter. To please adjust your speeds. The signs are not on the streets of River Forest as window dressing. They actually follow the state statutes or village ordinances. So we would ask that you really pay attention and also stop when required, and any other direction that they may give. The officers are out there. The additional speed monitoring signs are out there. And the officers do a balance of enforcement combined with education out there. So they're not always writing tickets, but sometimes they do have to write those citations, and we would just ask for voluntary compliance. Once again, we got some great speakers tonight and information that some of our personnel are going to present. And without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to Ben Ransom.
Thank you, Chief. Quick reminder, there is a Q&A button. Feel free to ask your questions there. Our first presentation will be an overview of the senior lifestyle community, the Sheridan at River Forest, led by Amanda Gosnell, the Executive Director, and there will be an opportunity after her presentation and after Ned's presentation to ask questions specific to what they're talking about. So Amanda, if you can hear us, feel free to join and get us started.
Great. Thank you so much, Officer Ransom, for having us. And we also wanted to take the opportunity to congratulate you again for the honor of the Elderly Services Award Officer of the Year in Illinois. Such an honor for River Forest and for you. So we're grateful to be here today. As Officer Ransom shared, my name is Amanda Gosnell. I'm the Executive Director here, and I'm joined by Ned Wagner. He is our Memory Care Director of our Embrace neighborhood here at the Sheridan. So we've been delighted that so many of our neighbors have so much curiosity about who we are and what we do. So I wanted to start out as requested with just sharing an overview of some of the most frequently asked questions about the Sheridan to give you some perspective. And then we'll be jumping right into kind of the main content of the evening, which is Ned sharing some of his dementia expertise with all of us. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with a little bit of a presentation for you all. I'm hoping everyone can see that.
Sure can, thank you.
Great. Thank you. So likely by now you've all heard of the Sheridan at River Forest. We are an assisted living and memory care community located on Harlem and Chicago Avenue. Opened our doors to our first residents down the red carpet on May 3rd. And if you haven't driven by lately, it looks a whole lot like the renderings from when the concept first arose. We are, as I said, about 4 or 5 months old, but we're part of Senior Lifestyle Corporation that is not new to senior living. Senior Lifestyle Corporation was founded in 1985 and actually it's a national organization, but headquartered right here in Chicagoland, serving seniors throughout the Chicago area. So we're excited to be one of the newest members of the family. Really honored to be part of kind of a family-owned company that really was founded based on the idea of kind of an extraordinary hospitality. And that's the tradition we hope to continue here at the Sheridan. So I popped in a few of my very favorite pictures of some of the moments that we've gotten to enjoy in our early months. And while I will be sharing some of the nuts and bolts of, who we are and floor plans and amenities, at the end of the day, who we are is based in the foundation of our mission. And our mission is that every day our caring team members purposefully brighten and enrich the lives of those we serve with dedication to our core values. So you can see lives being brightened and enriched here, whether it's enjoying the Trailside Museum or the amazing local eateries, or getting a exercise class from our own physical therapist, or a local art studio coming in to help us with silk scarf dyeing, all kinds of things to meet the many dimensions of wellness. We're not just primarily concerned with our residents' physical wellness, but really enhancing all those dimensions, their emotional wellness, their spiritual, their relational, and keeping our residents engaged. So that has been the real joy in seeing this project come to life. But some of the questions I get most often are, what really is assisted living? What is included for residents that live at the Sheridan? And so I've listed all of our, primary amenities here, but the 3 chef-prepared meals. Right now, our residents are actually enjoying a 4-course Halloween-themed dinner right now. They just finished up chocolatinis and we're on their way to lamb, I believe.
Yes,
so.
Rack of lamb.
A little rack of lamb. So 3 chef-prepared meals daily. We have a full activity calendar in both assisted living and Embrace, our memory care neighborhood. We have nurses and caregivers on staff 24/7 to assist with activities of daily living, medication management, and ongoing clinical oversight. We provide laundry, housekeeping, and regular tidying of apartments. You've probably seen the Sheridan bus traveling around Oak Park and River Forest. We do offer private personal transportation for appointments and group outings. All our utilities are included. We have an on-site therapy gym where we offer personal and group fitness classes. And we have a full calendar of programs that you've seen a little bit of an overview of. The next most frequent question I get is, what are the apartments like? So I wanted to give you a bird's eye view of a typical 1-bedroom apartment in assisted living. We offer studios, 1-bedrooms, and 2-bedroom apartments. And so you can see here, this is an example of a furnished apartment, but our residents do bring their own furniture from home to make it feel like home. Our maintenance team is happy to help with customizations and hanging art and so forth to really do those final touches that make it feel personalized. And then probably the most common question I receive is what the cost is. Now, the cost in both assisted living and memory care is related to the size of the apartment. We have apartments starting at about $4,500 per month. One thing that was really important to us and became apparent as we got to know our neighbors here throughout the Oak Park River Forest area was that people wanted a sense of security and peace of mind about what the future would hold in their finances. I think that's one of the biggest fears, is that as someone's needs might increase, that the cost would become prohibitively high for them. So based on that feedback we received of not wanting a ton of layered on packages and a la carte services, we created this transparent response where we all care costs are kind of bundled at a flat rate and locked in for 5 years. So our residents know that as their needs may increase over time, we're there to meet their needs and they don't have to worry about any financial implications of doing so. So as I've stated, care is just really at the heart of what we do. And so for every resident that moves in, not only do we literally roll out a red carpet, but figuratively, we do quite a bit to prepare for each resident's arrival, including kind of a personal background of their own history, their likes and dislikes, and also a detailed assessment of what their care needs are and what their daily routine looks like so that we can continue to honor that over time. Our nursing staff is available. We have a whole slate of healthy community partnerships, specialty providers that come in-house to meet our residents' needs. So they don't even need to go out for appointments. So we have primary care physician, we have a dentist, podiatrist, audiologist, several different specialists that are willing to come make house calls for our residents, as well as, again, physical, speech, and occupational therapy on site. We have an emergency response system 24/7 monitored by our care team and are licensed through the Illinois Department of Public Health to allow our residents to age in place. As we talked about the great programs we're doing, it's really important for our residents and family members to kind of stay engaged with what's going on a day-to-day basis. So we have really some cutting-edge technology where family members can see the activities of the day, can see what their loved ones are participating in. So they really get a real-time snapshot of day-to-day life for our residents. And then for me, in wrapping up today, I just wanted to share that we don't underestimate that COVID-19 is on everyone's mind, and the safety of our residents is absolutely our top priority. We do have the good fortune of having been developed in the midst of the pandemic and really have been able to take some of the best infection control learnings and implement them before we even opened. So I've listed here some of the physical features that have been added and upgraded within our community, such as needlepoint bipolar ionization. We've got aqueous ozone cleaning, all the touchless systems that we have throughout the building. But the physical is kind of only the tip of the iceberg in terms of the precautions we have in place. We are proud to say that we are 100% resident and staff vaccinated and are offering our residents COVID booster flu shots on site this fall. And again, do ongoing training with our team about best practices for infection prevention, which has been really part of the success story in these initial months of not having any spread of cases within our community. So I will take a pause there with just kind of the oversight of or overview of the Sheridan and transition to a more broadly applicable topic for many of you. No doubt we have seen as we've kind of become the support system and family for many of our residents and their families, we see firsthand the impact of living with dementia and caring for someone living with dementia. And so as we talk about our mission of brightening and enriching the lives of those we serve, we see who we serve not only as our residents and families, but the broader community here in Oak Park and River Forest. So we really want the opportunity to share our expertise over time with the community in hopes that it would benefit for any of you where dementia has touched your lives or the lives of those you love. So Ned Wagner has been a leader in memory care for over a decade. I won't count your years right now, but has helped countless families transition into memory care and work through different stages of dementia. And so he's going to be walking us through some kind of basic understanding of living with dementia.
Thank you, Amanda. So this slide is titled The Importance of Preparing for Living with Dementia. And I think that is a very important idea. And it's not just for, it's a multi-layered idea. And these statistics, which are just, they're all over the internet, how prevalent dementia and Alzheimer's is, that it's important to prepare and not be surprised by it, because like more than 6 million Americans are living with Alzheimer's disease. And by 2050, this number is projected to rise to nearly 13 million people. So not only is that just a staggering number of people, but that's just Alzheimer's disease. And Alzheimer's disease is probably the most recognizable name of a type of dementia, but it's just one type of dementia. So there are tens of millions of people currently living with some type of dementia or another. In addition to that, well, dementia is a disease syndrome primarily for people of age. It can manifest itself in younger people, but your risk of developing a dementia is much higher once you reach the age of 65. And in fact, 1 in 3 seniors die with Alzheimer's disease or another dementia. It kills more people than breast cancer and prostate cancer combined. And then dementia is this really sort of fascinating and painful syndrome, because it's not just affecting the person who has it, but it affects their families and everyone who has a relationship with them. And there are more than 11 million Americans that provide unpaid care for people with Alzheimer's or other dementias, which are basically family members for the most part. And it can be devastating to a family, not just because of all the care that is needed and the lack of sleep, but when someone in your family, and especially if it's an older person or a spouse and it's someone who is a patriarch or a matriarch, when they sort of lose their cognitive ability and their decisionality, it really starts to tear at the fabric of a family. So, and then another layer of that is that out in the community, we are, just as regular people, going to be meeting people who have dementia. And whether we're a store owner or a first responder or working at a library or working at a gas station, we meet these people. And we have a few guiding principles that I would like to share with you that I think will be very helpful. So dementia, what is dementia? Dementia is not a specific disease, but it is rather a general term for the impaired ability to remember, think, or make decisions that interfere with doing your everyday activities. I think it's also important to note that dementia is not a result of the normal aging process. Normal aging can include weakening of muscles and bones, stiffening of arteries and vessels, and some age-related memory loss. But dementia is something completely different. So if you lay your keys down and then you can't find them, or you walk into the kitchen and you can't remember what am I looking for? That doesn't mean you have dementia. That's very normal, especially in the lives of busy multitasking people. But with dementia, there's something very serious happening in the brain. Dementia is an umbrella term for a variety of syndromes that result in a progressive degeneration of neurons in the brain that affects some or all of the following areas of cognitive function. The first sign of a dementia is going to be memory. It's very, memories are developed in the hippocampus. It's a very small part of the brain, and perhaps that's why if there's some damage to the hippocampus, you're going to see those symptoms right away. And that's, you'll see that, and someone is telling the same, well, you told me that already. Wait, you told me that already. Or wait, you asked me that question already, like 5 seconds ago. That's not normal aging. If someone is doing that, it's not normal aging. It's a sign of a dementia that is progressing. It'll affect people's ability to pay attention. It affects their ability to communicate, which I think is one of the key features of a dementia that make it pretty much unique amongst most diseases. People lose the ability to speak clearly, to speak at all, or they're speaking but their words aren't making sense. And it's very frustrating for the caregiver, but it's also very frustrating for the person with dementia because their thoughts are typically clearer than the words that are coming out of their mouth. It impairs their reasoning. And now we're starting to get into judgment and problem solving. When those areas of the brain are affected, then we're starting to see someone who's like, wow, this person is maybe too hard to take care of at home because they're making dangerous decisions. It's one thing is like if you have a bad memory and you can put a note on your mirror and it reminds you to do something, then you're in pretty good shape. But if you put a pan of water on the stove and you forget for 8 hours, an entirely different ballpark. And then also visual perception beyond typical age-related changes in vision. And then finally, and this is what some people don't really think about, is dementia will profoundly affect your ability to perform basic activities of daily living. So real quickly, I do want to go over some of the types of dementia. Like I said before, Alzheimer's disease is the most famous of the dementias. It was the first one that was sort of discovered and given a name by, I believe, Dr. Alfred Alzheimer. It is one of the hallmarks of Alzheimer's disease is that there are proteins, plaques that are surround or envelop a neuron in the brain, and then you have tangles that sort of penetrate the neurons in the brain. And it was originally thought that these were killing the neurons, but that's kind of up in the air. No one really knows what Alzheimer's disease is, which makes it really kind of fascinating to me. Vascular dementia or multi-infarct dementia is typically when there's damage to blood vessels in the brain. Neurons are incredibly sensitive, delicate, and thirsty beings. They need lots of blood. And when there is a disruption to the flow of blood to the brain, the neurons will suffer, they will die, and you will eventually a dementia will develop. But sometimes, if someone has a stroke, if they're having lots of mini strokes or TIAs, those are things that could lead to a vascular dementia. Lewy body dementia, which is becoming associated with Parkinson's disease. So sometimes people will say, oh, we have a Parkinson's dementia or Lewy body dementia. Once again, that is another dementia that has associated proteins that sort of attach to the neurons and affecting the ability of the brain to function properly. You'll see people with Lewy body dementia have the ups and downs. Like some days, oh, they're walking and wow, you're pretty clear today. And then the next day they will be in a wheelchair and incoherent, and you're like, oh my God, what happened? So Lewy body is and then we'll have associated movement, Parkinsonian movement patterns with that. Frontotemporal dementia is probably one of the saddest and upsetting dementias because it tends to have an early age of onset. If you're 45 or 50 or 60 years old and you're showing signs of dementia, it is most likely a frontotemporal dementia. So it's affecting the temporal lobe of the brain, which is the communication center, and the frontal lobe, which is your reasoning. And so people will have very pronounced behavioral disturbances and pronounced aphasias, that's the inability or the disruption of the person to speak and receive language. And they tend to be very aggressive and fast moving. Alzheimer's is very slow. Like I'm 57 years old. When I'm 85 years old and I'm living at the Sheridan with Alzheimer's disease, I already have it, right? That's how slow Alzheimer's disease progresses. Frontotemporal dementias are faster. I threw in mixed dementias because if you Google types of dementias, there'll be a list of hundreds. There are hundreds of different disease processes that can affect the brain and kill neurons and do so in a progressive fashion, which is how you define the dementia. And I throw on here reversible causes as well, because there are, especially as you get older, your brain not only needs lots of blood, it needs lots of water. And as you get older, your body carries less water. And if you get dehydrated, that's going to affect your cognition, and you can get confused and your behavior can change and your personality can change. If you get an infection, it's going to affect your cognition and your behavior and your personality. And so, but those are treatable, right? So I don't like to refer to them as reversible dementias, because I think by definition, a dementia is not reversible, but they cause the same symptoms as a dementia and should be addressed and ruled out. So the signs and stages of dementia. So dementias typically come on slowly. And typically the person living with dementia is aware of it and they'll be aware of it for years before anyone else knows, because they're not going to say anything. I'm not going to say, hey, I think my brain is starting to, deteriorate. I think I'm going to, no one's going to admit that, right? Because, people are going to start taking your car keys away and, limiting your ability to go out in the community and be independent. So people will hide their dementias. In an early stage of dementia, a person is still able to function independently. People with dementia still drive, they work, they participate in social activities. But despite this, the person may feel as if he or she is having memory lapses, such as forgetting familiar words or the location of everyday objects. In an early stage of dementia, you're still able, your reasoning is still intact, and you're able to maybe use mnemonic devices, and you can structure your environment, which we'll get to later. It's important to start structuring and simplifying your environment if you feel that you're having signs and symptoms of early stage dementia. Now, in a middle stage of dementia, right, this is typically the longest stage and can last for many years. In the middle stages of dementia, symptoms are more pronounced, and the person requires a greater level of care. A person with mild dementia is still, for the most, you're still dressing yourself. You're still going to the bathroom independently, and you're not presenting a challenge to your family. But in the middle stages, that's where you're going to really start to struggle to express thoughts and perform routine tasks without assistance. So if you're a person living with dementia and you have a dedicated, family member like a spouse, or a son or a daughter or a niece or a nephew, you can still survive at home if you're not doing some of those things that make it really difficult, like not sleeping at night, wandering from the house, getting lost, or doing other things that can be dangerous to yourself. And then finally, in the late stages of dementia, the dementia symptoms are severe. Individuals lose the ability to respond to their environment. They're still aware of their environment, but they're not really responding to it. It's hard for them to carry on a conversation, and eventually they really lose their ability to control their movement and can become completely incapacitated. Verbal communication becomes minimal, and individuals will need extensive care. So this is, I'm really I don't know if excited is the right word, strategies for living with dementia. This is so important. And what we're seeing throughout the world and in America is increasingly, especially as we live to older ages of life, we're living perhaps more in a more stressful environment. Stress is very bad for the brain, right? If you don't want to have dementia, you could move to like an island, perhaps, and live on the beach. That would be a really good strategy for reducing your risk of developing a dementia, but we're not really all blessed with that opportunity. And I think that the most important thing people can do is if you start to feel signs of having a dementia, or you're seeing in a loved one signs that they might have dementia, you really want to have a positive attitude and a positive approach. Because living with dementia, although it can be very stressful and you're losing a lot of the aspects of yourself that kind of feel like that define you, it can still be a special stage of your life, and you can still have a life full of love and connection. Eating healthy foods, right? What do doctors tell you, right? Diet and exercise. A heart healthy diet is a brain healthy diet. So fill up on your antioxidants, and all those things that are good for you will be good for reducing your risk or slowing down a progression of a dementia. You also want to exercise your mind. And the key to that, though, is finding novel things to do that challenge your brain. If you love to do, the New York Times crossword puzzle and you've been doing it for 30 years, it's not novel anymore. It's still, it's maybe a challenge, but there's patterns and you recognize the patterns. So you want to challenge yourself with novel challenges to your brain, and that will actually make new connections, which can extend your capacity to take care of yourself in the midst of the dementia. You definitely want to simplify your lifestyle and make environmental adaptations as necessary. This is something where you really want to be forward thinking. I think we're really afraid of dementia. And I think that if one of the key ideas that I would like to get across is that we should not be afraid of dementia. You know, it's not great. It's not what you want, but if it's happening, it's happening. And at this point, there's no cure for it, right? So you want to be proactive and you want to plan, right? So you want to simplify your lifestyle, right? And financially, if you can get it, you know, as many things on auto pay as possible, right? That would be a good idea. You want to like, wow, you know what? You want to think about giving up your car keys, right? Instead of turning it into a battle with, you know, your spouse or your kids because you're fiercely clinging to your independence. Prepare yourself for that, because it's really, you'll realize that it's really not that bad. You'll survive giving up your car keys. And then looking at your house, right? If you have the means, maybe you want to get out of that 3-story house and maybe, you know, find a ranch that maybe has, you know, maybe a six-inch step that you can have a little ramp to get in and out, or move to an apartment that has, you know, that is handicap accessible. You want to adjust your mindset to be comfortable accepting help from others. This is really hard for us, right? Like one of my favorite, raise your hand if you're looking forward to someone helping you, you know, wipe your bottom after you go to the toilet. And I can't see you all, but I'm pretty sure no one is raising their hand right now. And we're very proud and we're very modest, and we have all sorts of things that make us feel ashamed if we need that help. But you want to come to terms with that and be ready for that, and learn to accept that, because it will make you much happier and peaceful as you move forward through this process. You want to be aware that dementia is a progressive syndrome, and that change is inevitable. The growth is optional, and you can grow as a human being through dementia, and you can certainly grow as a caregiver to someone who has dementia. And then also, don't be afraid to plan and make arrangements for the future. Maybe this sounds harsh, but dementia is a terminal diagnosis. It doesn't mean it's not like, oh, I have, you know, end-stage cancer, I have 6 weeks to live. You might have 6 years to live. You might have 16 years to live. You don't know, but plan for it, right? Make sure you know who your powers of attorney are. You can lay out your 5 wishes. That's a document you can attach to your advance directives. It's, hey, you know, I want to have a glass of scotch every night, right? You can do things like that to ensure that you can be happy even when you're not making your own decisions, and make funeral arrangements. There's nothing wrong with making funeral arrangements. Doesn't mean you're giving up. And then I think this is finally strategies for caring for someone living with dementia. So these are similar to the strategies of someone who is, you know, having a dementia, but you need to try to adapt to the changing needs of the person with dementia. It's going to be really hard. It is so hard to do, because this is someone that you have loved for maybe your entire life, if you're the child of someone living with dementia, or someone that maybe for 40, 50, or even 60 years, because you've been married to this person. And it's very hard to let go of certain parts of their self as they seem to disappear right in front of your eyes. And then they have these changing needs. So you really want to find peace with that, and learn how to mourn those things and let go of those things that you thought were important. And then you realize that, wow, there's still this wonderful human being that is still here and is totally valid. You want to assist when needed and discuss things together if you can, right? People still want to have their independence. It's an art, taking care of someone with, you know, dementia. You want to do for them, but you also want to let them do for themselves. You want to be calm and patient with, you know, when you're handling problems, and you take a deep centering breath and you realize it's not that big a deal. And the person with dementia then they'll recognize that you're being calm, and then they can be calm, and you can work through it. You can work through anything. Encourage the person with dementia to remain active. You know, my mom was, you know, taking my dad to the opera, and it's not like they had seats, you know, on the main floor. They were up in the upper balcony, and she would take him in his wheelchair, and I'm like, oh my God, how do you do this? And he loved it. He'd be directing, you know, the symphony and just had a blast. So you want to keep your loved one active. Take them out, right? Keep doing it. And we're not going to talk too much about, let's say, dementia-friendly River Forest, but River Forest has the designation of being a dementia-friendly community. So let's take River Forest and Oak Park up on that and get our folks out so that people, because it's important for people to interact with people with dementia. I sort of touched on this earlier. Remember that even though your loved one may not act like or relate to you the way they used to do, they are still themselves, right? As their abilities and needs evolve, ready yourself to evolve along with them. And there are many special moments to share with them all the way along their journey. I want to talk real quick about Embrace. That is not only the name of our memory care community, but it is also the name of our program and our philosophy. And you'll see here at the bottom, it says, when memories fade, it's the moments that matter. And that is actually a very profound statement. People are here, they're going to spend thousands of dollars going to a retreat in the mountains to achieve the ability maybe to live in the now, to live in the moment. And people with dementia, especially more advanced dementias, that's where they live, right? They're not burdened with the past. They're not planning for the future, and they live in the present, and you can be with them. And that's what we try to do. And we do it with these 4 guiding principles, and I sort of alluded to these at the beginning. And these are principles that we use. Our staff are trained to use these principles to develop positive, loving relationships with our residents. But these are principles that you can use with your own loved ones. The first being, let compassion be your guide. As long as your heart is open, you will make the right decision, right? There's no right and wrong decisions unless you're actually like punching someone or something like that, or screaming at them, right? But if your heart is open and you are compassionate, you will make good decisions and be able to make a good thing come out of a bad situation. You also want to see the possibilities. It is very easy to, let's say you walk into the kitchen and you see your dad, and he's just sitting there, with a blank stare on his face, and like, oh my God, there's nothing left. He's just a shell of his former self. But if you sit down and you pour him a cup of coffee and you hit him with your elbow and you tell him a joke that you've been, have shared the same joke you've been sharing for 40 years, and all of a sudden there's a twinkle in his eye, and then all of a sudden he's stirring his own coffee. Maybe you give him a sip of coffee, and then, oh my God, that's coffee. And then all of a sudden he starts drinking his own coffee. So don't be intimidated by their lack of responsiveness. See the possibilities. Lead with love, right? One of the beautiful things about having a relationship with someone who has dementia, it kind of gives you permission to love them, right? As human beings, especially as Americans, we're so uptight. Like, if I turn to Amanda and say I love you, it's like, God, what's going on here? What's wrong with you? But when someone has dementia, that's what they want. They want you to love them, and they want to love you, right? So that's where these beautiful moments can become even. And some people have really transformational experiences in their relationships with their loved ones who have dementia. We're like, oh my God, all these conflicts. And, oh my God, you used to disapprove of me, and now you just look at me, you love me. And that happened with my mom and her mom. Their last 2 years of their relationship, it was a blessing. My grandmother's dementia was a blessing to my mom because their relationship was healed through that. And then dementia is all about rhythm. It's all about rhythm and routine. So if you're developing a caring, care relationship with your loved one, you want to find a rhythm. So every day you're sort of doing the same thing at the same time, and you find a flow, and there's segues between this and that. Like sometimes it's hard to give someone a shower, but if you sort of, oh hey, let's have a cup of tea, and then we're gonna take a shower, and then I'm gonna scratch your back, and I'm gonna put lotion on your feet, and then we're gonna eat a piece of chocolate, right? So you create a rhythm and a flow, and it makes things a lot easier.
So I believe our time is officially up, but we wanted to just thank you for allowing us to share some of our experience with you, and hopefully part of what you took away from Ned's experience is, I think our experience with both Alzheimer's and dementia is that not to focus on what's being lost, but all that can be gained in the experience and the moments that can be so beautiful that we get to experience every day with our residents. So we want you to know that we're here to serve the community at large. We don't just build a building, we really want to be connected. So if anyone in the community has questions about anything related to seniors' needs, we're very well versed in anything from medical equipment to referrals to rehabs to what hospice is, to what home care is, to what Medicare is. We're happy to be kind of a go-to place if you are coming up against challenges or need advice. So please don't hesitate to reach out to us. And with that, Officer Ransom would be happy to take any questions that may be out there.
Sure. Let me just confer real quick. Do you have any questions? Doesn't look like any questions came up. Of course, you saw the information on the screen. Feel free to reach out later. I was able to visit the Sheridan earlier this year, and I can tell you the building is very impressive. I really enjoyed the walk through the memory care floor. I've never even heard of anything like that, the amenities available. So really glad that we have that in our community. And as you said, we're building this community with the Sheridan, and I believe that we got them into our last dementia-friendly meeting. So we are starting to get share our resources and our wealth of knowledge in this. So thank you, Amanda and Ned. Thank you for your time. I appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule. We'll be connecting soon.
Thank you. It's our pleasure.
Thank you, Ben.
All right, so we're going to take that screen share back. And quick overview of our free services that we offer. About our child safety seat inspections, our vacation watch program, the emergency ID bracelet program that we have, and the others that are listed on the screen. So last meeting in July, our focus was on crime prevention. As Chief mentioned, we had award-winning author Angelia Bianca join us to talk about her experiences in the drug and gang subculture, as well as her efforts as a violence interrupter. We also had a guest speaker from the Illinois State's Attorney's Office assigned to the Gun Crime Strategies Unit. So for this meeting, I'd like to shift our focus on community events and engagement and update you on some of the things that have occurred in and around town the last few months. Starting at the end of summer, we had our annual Junior Citizens Police Academy, where we were joined by officers from the Oak Park Police Department. And the Academy is a week-long program where our police officers become instructors. And we pass along knowledge and experience on a variety of topics, including the elements of a crime, investigations, forensics, physical fitness, and much more. This year, we collaborated with the Chicago Police Department to get special presentations from the CPD Mounted Patrol Unit, the Chicago Marine Unit, and even the Chicago Helicopter Unit, as you can see in the slide. The grand finale was when the helicopter landed at Keystone Park. We happened to be in the area on that hot day in August. That was quite a sight. Members of the River Forest community joined Bellwood, Maywood, Broadview, Melrose Park, Oak Park, and Riverside for the second annual Tour de Proviso, which is a 7-mile bike ride event that ended at Keystone Park. Speaking of bike events, our police department joined many others in escorting the soldier ride organized by the Wounded Warrior Project. The ride started in River Forest and ended at Brookfield Zoo, where the veterans were honored. The bottom picture shows some of the Warriors' bikes. Each bike is specially modified to accommodate their injuries and/or disabilities as a result from their service. It's always a heartwarming event, an honor to be part of, and we thank all the veterans who served our country and members of the armed forces who are serving now. This year, the River Forest Police Department took home another first place award for the Illinois Traffic Safety Challenge, organized by the Illinois Association of the Chiefs of Police. Each department who enters the challenge is graded on their efforts to make for safer roadways in our town. It's a lot to get into, So I hope to have Corporal Humphreys, who you can see receiving the award, speak at a different meeting to address everything that was done to win this award. But just know that it's a collaboration between our entire police department and the village, who supports us by adding adequate signage, dedicated bike lanes, and many other street engineering features that enhance the public safety. So great job all around, and another award taken home. Over the course of each year, police departments accumulate recovered bikes where we cannot identify the owners. And recently, our PD donated 43 bicycles to Working Bikes, which are slated to be shipped to El Salvador nation. Last year, Working Bikes collected over 9,000 bikes. Some were donated locally, but over 4,000 were sent to their partners in Africa and Central America. Of course, if your bike is lost or stolen and you don't want to be donated, we do recommend registering your bike with your local police department. We do have free registration available online on our website or also in our police department, Village Hall. Suicide Prevention Week was last month, but suicide prevention efforts are year-round for us. It seems that COVID-19 has contributed to a decline in many people's mental health. So we wanted to remind you that if you or someone you know is having suicidal thoughts, you are not alone, and you can call 1-800-273-TALK or go to suicidepreventiononline.org to talk to someone or get resources. A few weeks back, we had the fire department hosted an open house to celebrate Fire Safety Week. Just for a quick plug for our friends at the police department, we have a couple fire safety tips that all of our residents should take a look at. The first is to reminder to practice fire safety drills with your family, establishing 2 points of exit from each room, establishing a safe meeting place that's permanent outside your home, and designating someone to call 911 and where to call 911 outside the house. Also have your fireplaces cleaned and serviced before this cold sets in. Make sure with daylight savings time to be checking on your batteries for your smoke alarms. If you have leftover pain medication, they could be an unnecessary liability sitting on your shelf, and we recommend that you get rid of them. But it's not environmentally safe to throw them out or flush them down the toilet. So our partners at Positive Youth Development hosted National Prescription Take Back Day just a couple days ago. So if you missed the event, that's okay. You can still drop off unwanted medication here at our police department downstairs at Village Hall or at the Oak Park Township as a receptacle. October is, of course, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. You may have noticed many of our officers wearing pink patches or pink badges to help create awareness. And some of us have donated or participated in fundraising events to our part. If you'd like to learn more, and donate or get involved at www.cancer.org. Trick-or-treating is still on this Halloween. It'll be taking place this Sunday from 3 to 7. Please remember to adhere to standard safety tips that we have on our website on top of, COVID. On the village website, there's also some trick-or-treating handy posters where you can either welcome trick-or-treaters or save them the trip of walking to your door. They're color-coded. They're free to print on the website and also available in hard copies at the Village Hall. I mentioned the website a lot, so a quick reminder and also there were a lot of events that for the sake of time, I didn't get to, or I'm sure left out or forgot about. So many more events going on. If you want to stay on top of the events, the top right corner on the website, vrf.us, you can sign up to get alerts and reminders through your email, be part of getting connected with the community. And now, before we open up to some questions, I'd like to invite Detective Sergeant Labriola up here to speak briefly about some safety tips that we're looking at.
Good evening. I just wanted to go over a couple of crime prevention tips and some things that actually occur every year it seems like around this time of the year, with the holidays rapidly approaching, we start to get more and more packages delivered to our house. So just keep that in mind. To ring doorbells to monitor that and make sure you actually track your packages so you know delivered. Also, we do have a tendency to keep our cars running, keep the fobs in our pocket, and next thing you know, when we go inside a Starbucks to get our cup of coffee, we come out and our car is gone. So as a reminder, I know it's pretty convenient to keep the car warm and keep it running while you just run into a store or just run in the house really quickly, but keep that in mind that it only takes a couple of seconds for someone. I'm proud to say that although that crime has been increased in some of our neighboring areas, we have not seen some of those similar crime trends here at River Forest. So I'm pretty happy to say that River Forest has done an excellent job of keeping crime down to a minimum. But again, with the winter months rapidly approaching and the holidays, we tend to see an increase in certain crimes, such as package thefts, some car burglaries, or theft of motor vehicles, as well as some winter crime related. Again, if anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me. My number and my email is on the village website under the police department. An opportunity for questions once we can hear and once Chief O'Shea is done speaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Detective Sergeant Labriola, for the wise words. At this time, this is the question and answer portion of the evening. We'll see if any questions come in from the viewing audience this evening. And once again, we operate 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and we are available at all times to answer any questions, serious, in progress, or just general questions. The officers here are here to help, and we have a very dedicated group that really want to not only meet the residents under terms where they need service, but just sometimes just saying hi and having a casual conversation with them helps build those relationships. To add to Detective Sergeant Labriola's comments about prevention, we've seen a lot of great sharing of information from the residents with regard to their camera security systems at their residences, the utilization of those alarm systems that trigger when someone's attempting to enter their house, and also utilizing their cars, alarm systems, and also locking the doors, keeping their visible or valuables from being visible. And that's shown that some of the messaging has gotten out there, or residents that have been victims have passed on the word that lock it or lose it, which is the theme that we like to use over here at the police department. Once again, lock it or lose it. I'll check again to see if we have any questions that are coming in from the audience. If not, let's bring back up Ben Ransom to close out the meeting this evening. And thank you once again for either watching live or watching the recorded version of this. And once again, any questions arise, please just reach out and call us. And our email addresses and also the different phone numbers to contact us are not only on the village's website, but they can also reach out to the police department's non-emergency number at 708-366-7125. The Village Hall main number is 708-366-8500. And if you're not sure whether to call 911 or non-emergency when you're observing something, what I'd like to see you do is just dial the three numbers 911. See something, say something. Officer Ransom, please.
Hey, Chief, great advice. We'll be closing out the meeting tonight. Thank you for everyone for joining us. Thank you especially to our guest presenters from the Sheridan. And we look forward to seeing you at our next meeting, which will be later in the month of January. Everyone have a safe holidays, and we'll see you then.